Good evening. Thank you for your patience with us this evening and starting a few minutes late. It's been a busy couple hours. My name is Mike Wickers. I'm the mayor of our great city. This is the Cottonwood Heights City Council business meeting for Tuesday, July 15th, 2025. We're going to get our meeting started this evening with a Pledge of Allegiance, and I've asked our UFA Fire Chief Riley Pilgrim to get that started for us. Thank you, Riley. Appreciate it. The next item on our agenda is item 3, which are city council committee reports. Once a month, we take 3 minutes as a council each and give the public a brief background on what we're working on, some of our initiative things that we're trying to put forward with the council. So I'm going to get started tonight by starting with the reverse order and go to District 4 with Council Member Ellen Burrell.
Thank you. Well, gosh, there's a lot of things going on, and it's nice to see some of my constituents here tonight. So in no particular order, I want to mention that the Cottonwood Connections, which is the pipeline project that Metro Water, Salt Lake and Sandy are putting through our community. When I say our community, most everyone has seen Fort Union Boulevard, and its disruption has kind of simmered down. And now the pipeline is on its way southbound, you could say slightly to the east of Danish Road. And it's on its way to the treatment plant area. And so there's a brand new notice out this week that the intersection of Alta Hills, where it intersects with Danish Road, is going to be closed. It's closed now, as I understand it, and for the next 5 weeks. So I am admonishing those who come and go into that neck of the woods to, it would be preferable to use Danish Road. There's concerns about where Daneborg comes up into SR 210 Wasatch Boulevard. It's already a fairly dangerous ingress egress there because of the fast moving vehicles on Wasatch Boulevard and the blind curve to the north of where Daneborg comes in. So I'm working with our chief of police and with the Salt Lake Metro Water to mitigate the chance of any problems related to that detour system that's in place for the next 5 weeks. I also have had quite a flurry of people in my district. Of course, we're the wildland interface, and we also have part of District 4 is firework banned, and the other part of my district is not unrestricted. And with the drying climate that is trending, and many residents are trying to do their part in less water consumption and have turned off their sprinklers. We're seeing dried lawns and dried trees, which we don't want to see the trees die. Great, let your grass die. But so there are implications related to code enforcement for the look that is required, so to speak, of our properties. Also, the fire danger that comes from allowing especially trees to become dry. So what I just want the public to know is that I'm working actively with Chief Pilgrim. He is monitoring the whole city, and especially as residents voice their concerns about potential outbreak of fire related to this fireworks season that we're in. So I want to assure everyone that we're on high alert, both the city staff and certainly Chief Pilgrim. I'd like to also mention again, the Central Wasatch Commission that I've joined the board there. and I will continue to work actively toward transportation, traffic mitigation problems. And there's a Mill Creek Canyon shuttle study being done. And of course, I often remind my constituents that as we look for ways forward related to access into our canyon and also gridlock within our foothill areas, it's great to see organizations working toward shuttle systems that can help to alleviate the traffic and such. And the last thing I want to leave you with is a plug for an event that Randy Whitehead has put together for tomorrow. If you want to get a free ice cream, you and your loved ones, go over to Cinnabar. So that's the street that runs parallel to, you could say, Fort Union Boulevard, just on the south side of Hillside Plaza. And it sounds like a lot of fun. And I thank Randy Whitehead for putting that together. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Burrell. I failed to mention, but wanted to let you know, Councilmember Sean Newell is excused tonight from District 3. So we'll move to District 2 and Councilmember Suzanne Highland.
Good evening, everyone. July is very quiet, so I don't have a lot to share. Our CH2 meeting was canceled, our Health on the Heights meeting was canceled, our emergency management meeting was canceled, which is especially emergency management. That's good news because that means that we're not too worried about the flooding or the other dangers that are associated with that. What I do want to plug is Butlerville Days, and you received in your newsletter this month a pullout of that schedule. It's the 20th anniversary. Definitely, that's one of the highlights of our community. We appreciate the committee in particular of volunteers who helps the city put that together, and of course all the staff that rallies behind that. So July is really all about Butlerville Days. I also sit on the LPC Housing Advisory Subgroup, and wish I had something to report, but they're actually meeting tomorrow. It's the ULCT sponsored advisory subgroup on housing, and they are busy looking at infrastructure funding shortfalls and what we can do to mitigate the affordable housing crisis that we have. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Highland. From Council District 1, Councilmember Matt Holton.
Good evening, everybody. So the Historic Committee is going to have a little booth at Butlerville Days. They do an awesome, amazing job. So stop by that tent. I'll try to be there as much as I can. And they have some old photos and they've got some signs throughout the community trying to identify some historic places. So engage with them. They're super passionate group. And my dear friend Pam, I'm not going to steal your entire update for Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling, but I do know that she is here to announce that she is extending her retirement for another 3 years. So congratulations, Pam. I'll let the board know. Anyway, yeah, look forward to seeing you up at Butlerville Days. Check out the Historic Committee, and then on your way out, congratulate Pam on staying for another 3 years.
Thank you, Councilmember Holton. I think you've got a meeting right after this with Pam. So let me just add my 2 cents here real quick. I won't take a long time. This morning, I ended my term as the chair of the board of trustees for Unified Fire Authority. I've been serving for 2.5 years in that position, and it's been an amazing opportunity to be involved with this organization that I love, that provides so many vital services to our community. We've worked really hard to keep expenses low. One of the things I'm most proud of is that we've gone from 5% member increases to a 3% member increase this last year, which means we're trying to actually do oversight and provide services at a fair cost and to support the amazing employees that work there. I'm going to miss being at the chair, but I still will serve as on the board, so I'll still be as involved. But I've really enjoyed that this last couple of years. We actually just implemented over the last week something called Flash Vote. And this is something where we invite residents to sign up to take a survey once every couple months, 4 or 5 questions. It literally takes less than 60 seconds to take the survey. We have currently 570 people signed up. The first survey came out this past week and 290, I think, participated. We need more from District 1. We would love for people in District 1 to participate at a higher level, Matt, so we'll put you on that. But it was really fascinating, and we really hope that people will actually take these surveys and be involved and tell everybody that you know to participate. One of the things that came out from this survey was a lot of people asking, where's the town center? What's happening with the town center? And I'm just as anxious as everybody else, just so you know, about where the town center is. We are making progress. We just spent a closed session completely consumed with the town center. We are getting really, really close where we can share important things with the community and then actually involve the community in what we're trying to do and accomplish. So I want you to know to ask one more time to please be patient, but we are really, really, really close to being able to share really cool and fun thoughts. Okay, having said that, we're going to move on to our citizen comment period. Currently, I have a spiel to read, but because I only have one comment card, I'm going to say 3 minutes, Runar. Speak into the microphone and be respectful. How's that? Thanks, Runar, for coming. Click the green.
Yes?
There we go.
Fiscal conservatism, I've heard that, mentioned here by the council members from time to time, and I heard it on the evening of Meet the Candidates. I heard that once more, and that's music to my ears. I love to hear that. That means living within your means, spending money on only what is necessary. That means limited government. That means, being a stickler for raising taxes, lots of things. So it's all great. But, I haven't really seen that practiced much at all these days. And I just would point to a few observations, easy ones to pick out. Maybe it's unfair, maybe not. But for example, we have a sustainability office, which no one can define. No one knows what they do. Even the past director of that group even admitted that fact. Yet we continue to fund it. We also have solar panels on our roof, which a few years back we spent a lot of money, taxpayers' money, on installing solar panels with dubious benefits. We also have free charging going on outside. I just saw a gentleman park his Tesla and walk away. He's going to charge his Tesla overnight tonight. We also have a new position we created as a health coordinator, I think it's called. And we really don't know what that person's doing yet. They're going to do a survey, and they're going to poll minors about, it's called something called the SHARP survey, to figure out what we're going to do with this position. Kind of an odd way of going about spending money on personnel when you don't really know what the job's going to do yet. So all these examples, point toward something that we give lip service to, but we really don't practice. I also heard in the evening of the Meet the Candidates, there were some candidates who were really pretty cavalier about, let's just raise taxes. It's all great. We want to do some things. Let's raise taxes. That's the last thing I want to hear. We have our federal government, we have our state government making cuts. And yet we're just going on and we're just growing, we're just expanding, we're just spending money on whatever seems to come across our desk, And I would just like to say that if you guys have an interest in raising taxes in the future, how about showing us that you're serious about it and cutting your expenditures to show us that you can feel the pain as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Runar. Appreciate your comments. And we did have one more comment card. So Maggie, who knows the rules as well. Hi, Maggie. Come on up. Maggie Mills from the library. Hi, Maggie.
Hi, I'm Maggie Mills from the Whitmore branch of the Salt Lake County Libraries. Good to see you all again. Summer reading is wrapping up the end of the month. So if you're signed up, please be finishing so you can come in and get your book prize and enter into drawings and things like that. And we have a couple fun activities coming up in the next week or so. On Friday, this Friday, we have Mad Science at 11, and that's a kids program. It's going to be interactive presentation about adventures with science, and then a magic show on Saturday at 11. So we hope to see anybody there.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks, Maggie. Appreciate it. So I wanted to So we did have a comment card that or a comment come online that I think the council all saw. Is there anything else that we need to add into the record, Jared?
Just the one that was distributed.
Just the one. Okay, great. And Councilmember Highland did ask me to mention that the health position that we did add is not coming from tax dollars, but it is coming from an opioid settlement that you probably saw that was given to the state. And so those funds have been distributed to cities to try to create ways to make cities more healthy. And so it didn't even come from state tax dollars. It came from the opioid manufacturers who had to pay money to each state. And so anyway, Councilmember Highland asked that I add that into the record. Thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and close the citizen comment period. Item number 5 on our report tonight is from, so we're excited and sad. We're here to, Pam Roberts is the executive director for Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling. And Pam is on her way out. What, do you have a last day, Pam, or is it
September 30th.
September 30th?
Yes.
So she's going to resign after a long, great career.
Thank you.
We're sad about it, but we know that hopefully you've got some fun plans
Yeah.
to come. But and we're excited to hear your report.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. It's always a pleasure to be here. I appreciate all the support that you as a council and a mayor and city manager provide for Wasatch. As you know, we're trying to get out, and I also have James Kelsey here, our sustainability coordinator, who'll go over recycling efforts and the accomplishments for Cottonwood Heights. So I want to make sure I leave him some room to speak. So as you know, January 1, we rolled out a fee increase, and it was one of the largest we have done. There's 2 reasons that needed to happen. One is that we had a 40% increase in costs over the past 4 years prior to that fee increase. And that we normally have raised rates every 3 to 4 years. And so we were on schedule to raise rates in 2022. At that time, our cash balance seemed pretty healthy enough that we could sustain just a little longer and absorb cost, not knowing what the future was going to hold for us. So I apologize about that. Hindsight is 2020. So in 2023, we raised rates after 5 years, $2.50 per home per month, moving up to $19.50. Coming into this year, as you know, it was a 33% increase, so $6.50 per home per month, moving it to $26 a month. We bill on a quarterly basis, and the second quarter bills just went out, and so that was another reason I wanted to be here in July, is because I know they're hitting, and so I can make sure I let everybody know all the services that are included. And I don't know if we're able to pull up my, okay. Okay, thanks, Jared. But we have quite a vast service level that we provide, including the glass site that I want to thank Maggie for helping us out to get that at the Whitmore Library, and it is very popular. So just to review, we have central glass sites, we have trailer rentals at a reduced rate, weekly garbage and recycling, as the seasonal container reservation program, that I'll get into some of those stats here in a little bit. The can repair and replacement, we do have cans that are aging, they break down, we'll come out and replace that or fix the can if, and that's included in the monthly fee. Christmas curbside, and it's very popular here in Cottonwood Heights to come around and get those trees, and the central leaf bag. And then James provides a lot of education. He was here for the Charm event in Cottonwood Heights. And one of the things that I think we overlook, even myself, is that we have in-house customer service. So we have representatives that will answer the phone, respond to your needs. We also have a chat feature on our website, so we want to be responsive in a service provider. Some of the things I wanted to talk about as well on the next slide are cost-saving measures that we've been working on, recognizing that, you know, our financial advisors basically came in from Zions. They talked to the board, they talked to me, looked at our, you know, expenditures, and then going forward, they recommended the $6.50 a month increase. They also recommended another $1.50 in 2026 and another $1.50 in 2027. So my goal coming into this year was to try to avoid the fee increase in 2026, and if possible, the one in 2027. So basically to sustain what we have as long as we can. So the team and I looked at things, and I'm proud of our operations team and our sustainability team coming into this year. So the leaf bag services, we've been changing that program over the years, where we took the containers. We have the containers in the park, but just enough to mark the spot for people to drop their leaves. But we don't use a lot of trucks for those. We have the leaves on the ground, so we rent a skidster, and it helps with the manual labor to reduce workers' comp claims as well. So we're saving $136,000 on truck replacement costs in that for this year, and then $7,000 going forward. So we're changing the type of truck. What we have is, the next is the go backs. What go backs are is if we get a call from a resident that we missed their can, we now have the technology with the dash cams in the trucks to verify if we really missed that can. If we did, we will go back and make sure we service it on the go back day. And for Cottonwood Heights, that's on Fridays. But if we did not, and we have our customer service representatives checking out the video, was the can out or was it not? And a lot of times we found in a test that we did, 46% of the reports were false, meaning that the customer set the can out late or they didn't have it out at all. So we will not go back until the next service time, which would be Wednesday here. With that, so far, and verifying the, if we really need to go back, we've saved just over $47,000 so far, and our goal is to save $150,000. Other things to look at are capital purchases. Those garbage trucks are pretty expensive, especially if they're CNG. They're $450,000 a pop, and we presented to the board some options of purchasing diesel trucks versus CNG. We had 8 trucks coming up for replacement for this year. So the board elected to purchase the diesel trucks at $50,000 less. So we saved $400,000 on that. The other factor with that is that it's not just cheaper to buy it, but it's also we can fetch a higher dollar when we need to replace that truck and sell it. So the CNG trucks, we are just struggling to get sold. So if you know anybody that wants a CNG garbage truck, please let me know. We'll give them a good deal. The personnel changes, I call this right-sizing resources. We had, for our very first time coming into 2025, our first reduction in force, and we reduced 3 positions initially, and then we had a position that has become vacant with a supervisor retiring. Our team is absorbing that workload. Everyone recognizes that we've got to do something to reduce our costs, and even though these dollars and cents may not seem big, it's, you know, it's an illustration of what we're doing to try to do our part to keep them low. The next part is the very popular scrap program, and going over some of those stats. Seasonal container reservation, and you can see by the picture you have the used to be out on the street, the containers, and then the now, and how much easier it is to manage. So we've been able to reduce costs with this style of program, but understand we only did this because we had to. We experienced CDL driver shortages starting in 2018, and we still have problems hiring CDL drivers, especially for this program because it's a seasonal position. So they come in for the 6 months and then basically they're laid off after that time frame. So we're able to hire, this year we started with 10, but we're now down to 9. So they you know, phase out, they get burned out, or they just don't want to do it. But for the old program, we would need 20 CDL drivers, and we just can't do it. And especially to manage those piles in the streets with the abuse that was happening. For Cottonwood Heights, we started here Wednesday, April 30th, and ran through May 21st. This is the first year that we did the early bird, so we're trying to expand the availability to more residents, and the board, you know, wanted to launch this. It was a trial basis this year, and it looks like it's working. So basically, anybody that was on the waiting list last year would get the first dibs for reservations coming into this year. And then anybody that's on the waiting list this year will get it for next year, the first dibs, I should say. So this year we delivered 953 containers out of the 1,400 requests. We picked up 770 tons. Last year, we delivered just slightly less, 945 out of the 1,100 reservations requested, with almost 800 tons. Next year, we're going to start here in Cottonwood Heights, and then we'll go clockwise around the district. I don't know if you have questions for me, or am I okay to turn it over to James?
Before we transition, I just want my colleagues to know, I've loved serving on this board, and I've seen Pam, and she's a true professional. She really, it's been pretty remarkable. And Runar, I think you'll really like Pam because she really put into practice what you mentioned earlier. You know, she came to us that there needed to be this increase, and there were a lot of reasons. She's covered many of them. But every single board meeting, we have tackled something where she has found ways to save money. And I do think that when you ask for more, that it's only reasonable to say, hey, we've got to figure out how to cut some costs on our own. I think that's a reasonable approach. And all of those examples that she gave, and there's even some she didn't mention, which I think we're still talking about. But for instance, you'd be shocked at how much money one organization spends on just sending your actual physical bill in the mail. It is way more than I ever thought it would be. And we've even talked about, well, could we just go purely electronic? But then for the older demographics, could we keep that going? And if you move into the city, then you don't get the paper regardless. You have to sign up for electronic. She really has gone above and beyond to try and save every single penny that she could. So I just want everyone here to know that she's really tried to represent us as best as she can.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Councilmember Holton. And he is a wonderful board member. He's great at the table, asks good questions, and basically, won't let me just slide by. And I greatly appreciate that because I want to earn my keep. I also want to say to Jared, I know that you know our fiscal director, Helen Kurtz, who's come in from Sandy with many years of financial experience, and she's been instrumental in helping us look at what we're doing. And she is the one that's spearheading this endeavor to roll out monthly billing and reduce the costs through the e-bill option. So thank you.
We're going to let you sit down, but I'm going to call you back up at the end. So,
Okay.
Okay.
This is probably the first time that anybody has brought what some would call garbage to the podium, but here I am. Okay, so hello, thank you for having me. My name's James Kelsey. I'm with Wasatch Front Waste and Recycle District. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator. Today, we're going to go over some of the year-to-date updates for Cottonwood Heights waste diversion efforts, recycling quality, and environmental impact through your guys' waste and recycling efforts. I'm going to begin by looking at the diversion rate, meaning material that has been diverted from the landfill to more sustainable options like recycling or green waste. So in 2024, Cottonwood Heights achieved a 21% diversion rate, surpassing our district goal of 18%. So fantastic news. And in 2025, we're sitting at 22% for Cottonwood Heights, which is a slight increase from our 2024 numbers. Below that, we can see Cottonwood Heights' share of system-wide efforts, and this is going to illustrate the hard work that your city is doing. So Cottonwood Heights residents represent 11.56% of Wolford's total customer base, with 9,976 households participating in our district-wide services. That's the yellow section in that donut chart. We have collected in 2024 just over 12,000 tons of refuse. Year to date, 2025, we're at 4,428 tons. For recycling, 2024, we ended the year at 2,061.76 tons of material in the blue can, which represented 14.33% of our district total averages. That is represented by the light blue. I apologize that it's the 14.33%. It's hard to pick out the light blue from the dark blue on this screen. 2024, green waste, Cottonwood Heights generated 824.44 tons. That's demonstrated by the green section of the donut chart, which made up 13.36% of our total green waste tonnages. And 2025, Cottonwood Heights has generated 270.91 tons of green waste through 1,630 subscribers. And then last, and I would say most impressively, Cottonwood Heights in 2024 generated 156.07 tons of glass recycling. And that is demonstrated with the dark blue, and that is 24.07% of our district-wide glass. And that's through curbside collection, and like was mentioned at the Whitmore Library, it's a very popular drop-off site. We get a lot of tonnage out of there.
The percentage of glass, mostly it's at Whitmore, right?
A huge percentage is through bulk collection.
Just so you know, the flash vote that I mentioned earlier mentioned glass recycling multiple times.
Oh, excellent. And year to date, we're at 84.62 tons with 413 subscribers for curbside glass recycling. So awesome. All of these tonnages do represent more than just numbers. They are real progress. We're moving more materials away from the landfill and into sustainable long-term recycle solutions. Moving over to the right side of that slide, we have recycle quality and contamination. This has been a big thing for us. Recycle quality impacts our recycle processing costs. So Cottonwood Heights clean recycle rate, meaning recyclables free from contamination, has steadily improved since 2021. So in 2021, we can see a 70.07% clean recycle rate. We have cleaned that up. By 2024, we were sitting at 83.09% clean recycle rate, so less contamination in the recycle cans. And that, I will just mention, is the cleanest recycling in the district that we have. So awesome job, Cottonwood Heights.
Can I ask you what you attribute that increase to? That's fantastic news.
Yeah, absolutely. I mostly attribute it to education efforts. We've been pushing a lot, as I'll get into a little bit further down, into driver participation and our efforts with our quality assurance to do basically education. I'm trying to think of the right word to say. Efforts where we will basically flyer communities with recycling education. So we'll do what's called a route audit. Well, we'll go through an entire community and flip the lids as we go through and look for any contamination. We'll staple information to the can, just basically letting the residents know what's not accepted. And we'll follow that up with repeated visits to that community so that we can basically whittle down that contamination. We found that was successful through what I'll get into in a minute. Through sample sorts, we saw reductions in contamination when we would do a sample sort prior. Run that program for 3 or 4 weeks.
Can you give examples of what contaminates? I get into big discussions with my brother who, well, you can't put that in. There's still food on it. There's grease on that. I appreciate your education efforts. However, I have bags. It drives my husband crazy. I have bags of stuff that are all question marks inside. Can this really be recycled? From plastic crab shells to all kind of just innumerable things. Because I mean, on your website, you show what can be, then I would say that's 15 or 20% of the plastics that come through my house. And so, it's better than nothing. But when I compare recycling programs in other cities and other states, there's so much more. I'm so interested in, how do we reduce the landfill? And I know that's not what WIFWR does. You're moving the recycling around and there is some sampling being made. But to talk about the contamination rate, I mean, can you give some examples of what contaminates the most? What are the offending objects that contaminate?
Absolutely. So it is slightly seasonal. Contaminants that we run into a lot: green waste during spring and fall. People just using recycle cans, and I think they're confusing composting with recycling in some scenarios, or they just don't want another black can. As far as other contaminants, we run into a lot of flimsy plastic, like plastic bags, styrofoam materials, food contaminated materials. So as you mentioned, the clamshells are accepted in the recycle bin, but a lot of times they are soiled with food items. If it's
I thought
soiled,
clamshells were not allowed in your recycle.
Clamshells are allowed in the
Oh.
recycle bin. Yeah,
Oh.
I actually, I reached out to the material recovery facility after a recent board meeting to clarify that with their director, and I was informed that they are accepting clamshells.
So does it really, when it says 1, 2, 3, or 4 on the bottom of the plastic item, I believe it was number 1. If it said number 1, it should be recyclable, but then I mean, can you address that a little bit?
Yeah, so the number and the chasing arrows is a resin indicator. It basically tells the consumer what type of plastic it is. However, with size, shape, or any really many different variables, it will affect its ability to be processed through the single stream recycling. That's because the single stream recycling, when we pick up the material and take it to the MRF, when we drop that material off, it's basically sorted through an automated sorting process. It's fed into a machine that uses a lot of different technologies and a little bit of human labor to sort out those materials into the different accepted materials. However, when they run into like flimsy plastics, which are at number 4 in the chasing arrows, those cause complications in their systems. It binds up on their machinery. They don't want it there. It doesn't mean that material can never be recycled. It just can't be accepted in the single stream curbside.
So the category of flimsy plastic is like a grocery bag or
Correct.
any plastic that you can crumple up.
Correct. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Same thing with the styrofoam.
And that can all go to like Smith's or one of the
Correct.
they take all of that. Okay.
Yes, and on our website, and I'd be happy to help anybody who needs the information if they call. I do have information on where to take it, and if I don't know, I will spend my day trying to figure it out for them so I know for the next people.
Thank you.
You bet. Okay. So contamination matters basically because it affects our processing costs. Our processing costs with the material recovery facility are based on 3 major contributing factors. They're the prices of the commodities that we bring, like aluminum cans are very valuable, where paper is not as valuable. So that affects our pricing. Material composition, how much of each material we're getting, and then contamination levels within our cans. That affects our processing costs with the material recovery facility as well. So like I mentioned, what we're doing to address that is education. Like I mentioned, we're also visiting elementary schools to try and get kids on board and hoping that that goes home and educate the parents. We're doing community outreach events like Butlerville Days. I will be participating there with a booth to talk to residents, give them any information or answer questions for them. And then also driver reports. That's been a big push for us this year. And that is the other thing that I contribute to some cleaning up of the recycle as well. We're getting drivers educated on what's accepted and encouraging them to report contamination in cans so we can address it at the curb before it gets to the MRF, just to keep those contamination rates down. In 2025, Cottonwood Heights only had 84 driver contamination reports, and that's about 6.49% of district-wide reports. So we have low reports in Cottonwood Heights, and I attribute that to low contamination rates. Are there any questions before I explain how we track any of this data or what it means?
The only thing I would add is, I didn't know before I started this job that you can't put recyclables into a garbage sack and close it in the recyclable can because you don't have the time to open that up and sort it, correct?
Absolutely. Correct. That is correct, yeah. And it comes down to them having to open it, and also if it makes its way through that machine before they can get to it, it gets bound on those sifters, is what they're called.
Okay, this is all like family drama, but I've got another question. Because you have, well, my daughter-in-law uses the blue recyclable.
Mhm.
No?
No. Yeah, I hate to say that. I have talked with residents before. It's hard because they spend their money on it already, and it keeps their can cleaner. And I get the draw, but we still run into the same issue with the MRF, where they will count that as contamination because they run into the same issue. Those still bind in the sifters, and they also have to have the manpower to cut open each of those bags. And when we're looking at, let's see, when we're looking at 12,000 tons in a year, I mean, 1,000 tons just from this city, it gets overwhelming. That machinery is moving incredibly fast.
Well, I was only going to chime in that, you know, as we do our education program, I know Bruno Bowman brought up, you know, what in the heck is the sustainability program here in Cottonwood Heights? There's so much more that can be done within the community. My residents in District 4 tell me they're very interested in sustainability issues, resiliency. And so when you think about recyclables, you know, how many times do we need to package something in plastic? So we buy it at the store, it's clean, because we're not allowed to recycle if it isn't clean. So then why do we need a liner on our home receptacle? Just don't do the liners if you want to do it for garbage. But, you know, so they may seem very small, but collectively it makes a difference, right?
It
I
absolutely
mean,
does.
you know, to think how many times do we need, how sterile of a world do we need to live in, really? Okay, sorry.
I'm not going to relay that message to my daughter-in-law. Somebody else will do that.
Good family advice.
Okay, so what are sample sorts? To measure contamination and track material types, we conduct what's called a monthly sample sort, and we do that for every city that we service. It basically involves us hand sorting a portion of a recycle load into each accepted commodity. We weigh those commodities and it gives us a percentage of how much of each load is a particular commodity. So it gives us material composition, it addresses contamination levels, and then again, it drives our education efforts for each community as we can see how much contamination is coming in from a particular route.
And so again, that's one truckload per city per month?
Yes, correct.
And is that a good representative sample?
I would like to see more. Honestly, I would like to see more. I think that if we were able to do a larger sample, we would be able to get a better judgment of how much of each material is coming in. However, we don't have the resources to do an entire truck. Each sample sort does average about 700 to 800 pounds of material. It's not a small amount. We have had sorts up to about 1,200 pounds total. So we try and do a large section, but as we run into so many sample sorts throughout the month, it takes a whole day to get through them. That's kind of where we're limited currently. Okay, so the table below shows the findings that we've seen. This is an average for all 12 months of Cottonwood Heights sample sort data. In 2024, we see that Cottonwood Heights had a total of 2,061.76 tons of recycling brought in. Through sample sorts, we found 55.53% of loads on average to be composed of cardboard. I had some demonstrations. 14.75% to be of mixed paper. This is where I think this will be more informational. 2.86% of natural HDPE plastics. These are the number 2 in the chasing arrow, jugs. 2.34% to be colored HDPE, the same material, just in a color format. 1.68% to be PET bottles. These are all accepted items at the material recovery facility. 1.51% to be aluminum cans. 1.51% to be tin cans. They were off by a few decimal points there. That's the change in tonnage. And then last but not least, 2.6% to be mixed plastic. And that's where we run into a lot of confusion, but that includes clamshells, plastic jars with a twist off top, tubs, and jugs as well.
Maybe answers my question, but lids, all these little plastic lids are big. They can be recycled. I never know whether to throw the lids separately in the waste or put it in the recycle. So the whole
Yes.
thing goes.
Yeah, we do want them on the bottle. The way that this is processed, it's ground up into a fine flake. So they'll grind the lid and the plastic body, and they'll put it into a float solution. The lids will float and the body will sink. That way they're able to capture the material from the lid and the material from the body.
So you do want the lids screwed on.
Yes.
What about all the yogurt and all the heavy plastic, those kind of containers, the cottage cheese, those can be recycled?
Yes. Yep.
You just have to rinse them out?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so these numbers, they're not just, sorry, statistics. They represent real materials being reused instead of wasted and landfilled. And this is where this gets exciting. So if we take those tonnages, those tonnage estimates, we're able to use EPA data, and we can estimate real world savings for all of those materials that are being recycled. And this is comparing materials that are recycled and used to produce something compared to using all virgin materials. So using Cottonwood Heights 2024 recycling data, we estimate a reduction of 10.1 million gallons of water saved. The EPA estimates that to be enough for 339 people for an entire year. 24,632 mature trees, equivalent of, to produce 3.7 million cardboard boxes, which sounds astronomical, but that's less than one cardboard box per household per day. And with Amazon, that's an easy thing to achieve. 7,405 megawatt hours of energy, or enough to power 686 homes for an entire year. 29,000 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions avoided, equivalent of 630 cars from the road for a year. And then the last one, 17,678 cubic yards of landfill space saved. That is open air space. If compacted, that comes down to 3,436 cubic yards. So basically, in summary, Cottonwood Heights has exceeded our district goals for diversion in 2024 and 2025. We can see that residents are actively participating in our sustainable efforts in recycled green waste and glass. Contamination is down to the lowest in the district, and your guys' efforts are saving energy, water, trees, many valuable resources. So thank you to your city. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
Is
you.
it James?
Yes,
Thanks, James.
thank you.
Okay. Pam, calling up real quick.
You're the best, man. We love you. Hopefully you didn't ride your motorcycle, because that's gonna be fun. Right?
Thank you all. Okay, we're going to move on to our 2 quarterly reports. We'll start with our police department and Chief Russo and Candy Terry, who will come up and help us move through that report.
While she is working on that, we sent out a copy of this yesterday. I trust you all received it in your emails. Uh-oh.
Did it come from you, Candy?
It would have came from me.
I don't have it. The last thing I have from you is
Okay, I'll check the mailbox. we were trying to be so good and get that out before the meeting so you'd have a chance to review it. Again, while she's working on that, I wanted to tell you, if you liked Emma's presentation, I'm happy to send that out to you as well, so you can have that to review.
Hey, Matt.
Okay, all right. For calls for service for June of 2025, we had 1,337. We are down from last year where we had 1,530 calls. For our overall UCR crime stats, we had a total of 51, which again, we are down from 61 last year, which is not always a bad thing. Our assaults were up, but our thefts were down. So, and as our stolen autos were also down. So our arrests stayed the same around the same from last year of June of 2024. We had 66 in June of this year and 67 from last year. Traffic citations, we issued 280 in June and 176 warnings, and we did have 6 DUIs. And then this is our breakdown for the last few months. And then we do have 2024 in there as well. Here's our crashes for June of 2023, 2024, and 2025. As you can see, crashes are down for the last couple of years.
What do we attribute that to, Chief? That's pretty drastic, the number.
I would attribute that to your traffic unit that you funded, the amount of proactive activity.
Huh.
If you go through the intersections, you'll see them,
Yeah,
and they're stopping a lot of cars and
great.
sorry.
Okay, here's our code enforcement. They had a total of 83 calls for service, and they did issue 1 citation in June. We had 1 unattended death and 0 attended for the last month.
And you understand the difference. We've talked about it before. So if it's attended, it's normally something that wouldn't go to the medical examiner because it was expected. If it's unattended, then it would be, from violence or suicide or overdose.
And then our 3 months in review. Here's our property crime report for June. There's District 1, District 2, District 3, District 4. These were where all of the citations were issued. As you can see, the main arteries are definitely getting the main citations. And then we have had a couple of cases I'm going to let Chief talk about.
Fentanyl's such a problem in our country, in our state, in our city. This is, the guys do some proactive work. This started with a stolen car, and they were, crimes are motivated by addiction, which is a very powerful thing. They were able to follow this back to the actual drug dealer. What you see in the picture, it's difficult to see, but that's 3,700 fentanyl pills from one dealer. Legislature passed a new law this last year, and it makes it a first-degree felony if you have over 100 grams. This certainly surpassed that, so they'll be charging him with a first-degree felony, which they did. However, he was undocumented, so I believe ICE took him. At least there's a hold on him. So then the other picture, we got a call at a home, and these people were just frantic and very frightened. they had intruders into their home and they barricaded themselves into their bedroom and called the police. And we have our 4-minute response time. And we got there and cleared the house, but we could hear noises too. And we found the masked bandits on the roof. If you can see one of them looking over the side right there in the center picture. So I guess the point is you never know what we're going to go on. It could be a routine call, it could be violence, it could be something like this, but never a dull moment. So
And then our safety message for the month is please do not leave children or animals in hot cars. We've had several calls where individuals are leaving their dogs in the car while they run into Target, while they run into Trader Joe's. Please do not leave animals or children in the vehicles. It gets so hot and that you think you're leaving the window cracked. It does not make a difference. So those animals can go into distress very quickly.
and this became a problem a few years ago, and Mr. Toppin helped us craft an ordinance. So if you look at it, it enables us to, smash the windows and recover the animal and gives us a lot more latitude because it's important. With that, any questions for myself?
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you. I think your data reports continue to improve, and I really appreciate that, the comparisons. And as well, I'm really excited about the new crime data that you shared with us at the work session. So thank you for advancing these things. I think it'll be great for our city to be able to, the council and such, to help to advance programs that support what you do and also the citizenry that want to continue to see our area be more walkable and bike friendly. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. My apologies for not getting you the report. We thought we were all over it and got ahead of it, but I'll figure that out and make sure you get it for next time. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Pam is a superstar, and I've had the pleasure of working with her since the day we started the police department, and that is a big hole to fill. So thank you, Pam.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Candy.
And then I just want to say happy birthday to Tiffany.
Okay, thank you all. Okay, the next quarterly report is from our finance team. We're going to have our finance director, administrative services and finance director, Scott Georges, come up.
All right, well, the trend is continuing when I present, people leave. So, oh, it's so exciting. All right. So I've got some data. Some of this data is not end of year because we're still collecting both expenditure data and revenue data. So not everything is finalized, but I have updated everything here so that you can see different things. This is the property tax. So if you look at all of the annual change in property tax, and this is based on budget, budgetarily, we get about $52,000 a year, not including 2019 when we did the tax increase. When we did the tax increase in 2019, we got just under $1 million, and that was 13.4%. So this is our net increase in property taxes is extremely low. We just don't get that there. And then in any of these given years, these years down here are going to be a fiscal year. And so if you're wondering about the tax year, it would correspond to that -1. So the 2015 fiscal year would be the 2014 tax year, is how that kind of works out. So if you're looking at your property tax data from 2014, that would hit our fiscal year 2015, how that would come together. We're sitting right now at $8,233,920. We still have collections that will come in essence for the next couple of months, usually till about early September, that we will book into the current year as we're moving along. And so we will still see some, in essence, delinquent payments that will come in as we move forward on this. And I had talked to the mayor earlier and told him that this was a little higher than what it's showing right now. I hadn't refreshed my data. And so we had actually booked some revenues into this that will actually end up being booked into 2025 or 2026. Sorry. because they're actually the current year's data. These were some early entries that we had in January and February that would need to be booked into our current year because they're not prior year data. So anyhow, are there any questions on property tax? Okay. The next one is motor vehicle fee in lieu, and this is the fee that's charged on motor vehicle registrations. Could be any type of motor vehicle, boats, motorcycles, etc., RVs, whatever. And anyhow, we're seeing our revenues go up quite a bit in this year that we're just in. And that's kind of weird because usually this kind of follows the trend of, did you do property tax increases? If you do property tax increases regularly, typically you see your share of this stay and maintain or maybe slightly grow, comparatively speaking. With us not doing a property tax increase, it's really weird to have this do this. So I'm not exactly sure the dynamics behind what is causing this.
More vehicles? I mean, does that, as people
Well,
have more vehicles per household or?
I don't know for sure that that's exactly causing that. It could be a little bit of something with that. But again, it's not value-based and stuff like that. So usually, if you have a bunch of teenagers at your house, you're going to have a few more cars and things like that. So I don't really know the dynamics of what's behind this. We don't get a lot of visibility into this. The good thing is we're not talking massive amounts of money, the fluctuations in this, but it's kind of strange that it's doing this. My history of dealing with over the years shows that this kind of mimics what property tax does a lot. And so I don't really know why this is.
Collections are done though through 25 though.
What's
We're
that?
done with collections in 25.
For this particular one, we are. Well, actually, we might get just little teeny bits. Like if somebody registers a car that should have been registered last year and they finally get to registering it, then we might get a little bit, but it's largely done, probably 99% done. So any questions on that? Okay. Our sales tax trend. So sales tax trend is through the month of April. So sales made through the month of April. So currently, you can see the prior 2 years are very, very similar, just under 9.1 million. We're sitting this year at 7,528,000, and that's $64,000 ahead of where we were in 2024 at this time. And everything, the last 3 months all get booked into the same month. So it's kind of not represented very easily here, but we are ahead of last year. We're in our projection that we put together for our budget, we had $9,250,000. I think we're still in the realm where that could be easily reachable, and we will watch that again. There's 2 months left to be able to gain some revenue on this. Around the 20th of this month, and then a month from that will be those 2 months when they will report, and we'll distribute that information out when we get that information. And you can see that our budget last year was $9.7 million, and we know that we're not going to hit that. We'll be more like the 9,250. And then we put our budget for the year that we're in now at $9,500,000. And so that's kind of, looking at the dynamics of sales tax. Any questions related to sales tax? All right. The next one is the county option highway sales tax. And this somewhat mimics the sales tax, except not all areas participate in the county option sales tax. And so only the areas that are actually involved. And so in this case, Salt Lake County is involved, but I don't know of the other counties that may be involved in this. So the last couple of years, we've been just barely under 800,000. Currently, we're sitting at 668,000 with, we're about 6,000 ahead of last year. We put in our projection to get 810,000. I still think that that's very, very possible as we look at the last 2 months coming in and, starting in the next probably about week and a half. And then also a month from then, I think we're right there. And our budget this year was 810,000, and next year we put it to 820,000. Any questions on this particular revenue line? Okay. The next item is transient room tax, and this is a combination of both hotel generated and short-term lease, your Airbnbs, your VRBOs, et cetera, and other methods. Those are just seems to be some of the popular methodologies of gaining that. You see, and from 2022 to 2023, we recognized the new hotel that was built up on Wasatch, the Marriott, and that added to our revenue base. And then since then, it's been very stable. This year, we're sitting at 160,000 revenue year to date, and we're $4,000 ahead of where we were in 2024. And we had put both our projection and our budget was at $180,000, and we might be just a little bit ahead of that when we get to the end of the year. And next year, the budget is at 180,000 on that. So, any questions on that? All right, the next item is our municipal energy tax, and we've kind of been dealing with battling rates, not the rates that we charge, but the rates that our power company charges and that our gas company charges. We know that the power company is looking at doing an increase and the gas company did a decrease. And so as those, crisscross each other, it's hard to predict, and the timing of when they come in and everything else can be a factor. The last 2 years, we've been a little better than 2.5 million. You can see the numbers here. This year, we're sitting at 2,185,000 year to date, and we're about 55,000 behind what we were in 2024. And so we'll look at that. One of the factors is we've had a very, very warm spring, and that's going to factor into using more of the power. And so to power air conditioners. So the likelihood is we will see a little bit higher power consumption, which will translate into a higher bill, which translates into a higher percentage-based energy tax. Now, we'll see if all that comes in, but I think we'll be very similar to where we were last year. If we don't hit 2.5 million, we'll be really, really close to it. We did put in here as our projection when we were establishing the budget, 2,550,000. And because we had seen some instability in this, especially with the rates that the companies are charging, we decreased our budget down to 2.5 million for next year. So any questions on this one? Okay. Cable TV franchise tax, we've seen a decline in this over the past 3 years, going from 322,000 down to 290,000. Currently, we're sitting at 204,000 on 3 quarters collected. Excuse me. That's 13,000 behind our 2024 level of 291,000. And so if that continues, we could be down in the 275,000 net collected. We'll have to kind of watch that a little bit. But again, even if we're at that rate, we're only 20 or 25,000 behind our budget. It's not a budget breaker or anything like that.
So is this attributed to the trending of people streaming versus paying for cable? That's what it's tied to. Okay.
And I think cable rates have also dropped as cable tries to retain customers. They've dropped a little bit, and people are weaning off things that they don't need, trying to reduce their bill. All that kind of factors in on that. So any other questions on that? The next item is our Class C roads trend. So we get to collect this based on the periods that we receive it. We have to receive it before the end of June. So we receive through April. They make the distributions in 2-month increments. And so in the last couple of years, we've been a little under to a little over 1.5 million. And we ended this year at 1,591,000, which was about a $21,000 increase over the prior year. Our budget was set at 1,480,000, so we're about 110,000 ahead of that. And our budget for the next fiscal year, the one that we're in right now, is set at 1.6 million. So we're probably on track to be right about there. And this is based on dollars per gallon. And so as our state grows, and our population in the city remains constant, the likelihood is we'll continue to receive about the same amount on that. So any questions related on this one?
So where are you expecting that fund to end?
This one, we had a projection of 1.6, and this one is done. This one's all complete. So we had 1,591,000
Oh,
was
got
the
it, got
net
it.
on that one. And I probably could have just plugged that in up here because this one is done. So And then the next item is our general fund expense trend. Now, this is preliminary. We will go through and scrub through this as we go through the audit process and book the last little bit of things that we've got going through. Many of our general fund expenditures are included in this at this point in time. There might be a handful of things, but most of our straggling invoices are more related to capital or your bigger public works projects and things. So they don't go in the general fund. They impact construction funds and other things like that. So largely we're done, but there are a handful of things that we will potentially massage and things in this. We do have natural growth in our general fund every year because of personnel cost increases that we have in any given year, as well as other things. This does not count any of our debt service. Debt service is counted for in a transfer out, not in an expense. And so as we see this, keep that in mind. But we're sitting at 22,589,000, and that's about $500,000 ahead of the prior year spending. And if you look at the dynamic, our projection was 22,484,000. So where we're sitting right now, we're roughly $100,000 ahead of where our spending was last year, but or where our projection was for the year. However, on a percentage basis, that's an extremely low number. 100,000 on $22 million is very, very low. And so I think we're trending in a good way. And again, some of those expenditures will be massaged out as we do our audit process on it, and we go through it. Not a lot, but little bits that we do. So
Yes, but your budget was 23.1.
Yeah.
So you think you're going to hit that?
oh no, we always have under expend. Yeah, we will have under expend. We're typically somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million, to give a very general large swath of kind of where we generally land. But if if we're given $1, we can't spend $1 and a penny. We have to spend $1 or 99 cents or 98 cents. So there's always some natural under expend in our budgets. And so as we go through that, we traditionally do recognize, I'd say 600 to 700,000 is most common in our under expend numbers for the general fund. But that does fluctuate a little bit. So, and then the budget for next year is set at 24 million. Now, one thing you'll notice at the very, very top of the 2025 budget, there's a little numbers, and that's our budget adjustments that we do through the year. So our budget adjustments are generally small. However, there are years when our budget adjustments are higher than others as we do different things. For instance, I think back in 2024, there were probably more budget adjustments in there because the net amount of change here was a little bit higher than, kind of a normal year that you'd necessarily expect in terms of your actual expenditures. And some of that could have been related to one-time grant money that came in, such as the state and local fiscal recovery funds and things like that. All right. And then the revenue trend, again, we're still waiting on 2 months of sales tax revenue, as well as other forms of revenue to come in on this. So we're roughly, just to put a big number just in those two categories of, well, the one category of sales tax and then county option sales tax, we're probably $2 million behind on this. We'll get some of it next week and then in another month after that. But we had 27 and 26 million in these years, but those were padded by 2 million in each of those years of state and local fiscal recovery funds. 25 is a little bit more of a normal upward trend of where we would have been without those funds. And then we're looking at, right now we're at 23,761,000, but I think we'll be more like 25 to 26 million when we're done. And here's the projection that we had, 26,384 or 348. And I think we'll be probably, like I said, in 26 to 26.5 million will be our net ending revenue on the current year. And that's on a budget of 26,680,000. We're able to predict our revenues a little bit closer than we can predict our expenses because of the underexpend that we have to rely on. And then you see that in the 2026 budget, currently that's set at 26,201,000. That does not include very much in the way of grants and other things like that, because we usually recognize them through the year as we go through. So, any questions on that?
Great. No, so we're less than a week away from sales tax numbers again, and we're going to cross our fingers.
Yep.
We didn't have a great month last month. I think tariffs have played a little bit of a part of this. We had the month before that, we had a huge number.
Yep.
So we're ready for another two big ones, Scott. So if you'll make that happen, we'd appreciate it.
Got it. Yeah, I'm on it.
So you're not as concerned, because I'm looking back at the sales tax trend. That was the thing that piqued my attention is we had 9.7 million in the 2025 budget. We're projecting now only 9.25. That's a $450,000 change, but you think that's going to be made up in total revenues?
Which one then?
Well, your 2025 budget is 9.7,
Yes.
and you're projecting based on the 10 months that you have that you're only going to receive 9.25.
Yes.
But in our general revenue trend, the last slide that you just showed, I think that we're going to be okay. We're going to make our overall budget number.
Yeah, we receive, in this particular revenue, we receive, anywhere between 650 to $850,000, maybe 900,000 in any given month in terms of our net revenue. And then in our, this option, the county option highway tax, we get another 100,000 in here. And so
Okay.
between just these two sources of revenue, not including any others, we will get nearly $1 million. It might not be $1 million. It might be 900,000 of revenue in each of May and in June when you combine those two up. So we'll get another roughly 2 million, maybe just a bit under, in these two sources. And then there are other sources that will continue to filter in the next little bit. So
We'll watch that sales tax number for sure. Thank
yeah,
you.
I mean, sales tax is a big deal. It's more than a third of our net revenues now. And so it's a big deal. We need to watch it because that's our only, well, not our only, our large growth potential is in sales tax, but our also potential to not have growth is in sales tax because property tax is extremely flat and it just moves on. It's nice to depend on, but it just doesn't grow.
You have fixed expenses with variable revenue, if you're just looking at sales tax, because sales tax is so subject to recession.
Sales tax, I think we average over the last 5 years, Dave gives that number. I mean, I think we're up in the teens somewhere as an average growth. The reason we're not seeing that obviously is people are spending less. But if you think about it, that 1% sales tax that's charged that the city gets, we get 50% from the point of sale within Cottonwood Heights. The 50%, the other half of a percent comes from the statewide number being collected and then being redistributed based on population. The fact that our state is growing and that there should mean that we should see steady growth in a sales tax number over time. Like I said, this year's probably not going to be great, but we can hope for maybe something better next year.
Yeah, we had huge years right after we did our property tax increase. We had, which is one of the reasons we were able to get so far along here without doing property tax increases, is we saw like a 17 or 18% growth year, 1 year on our sales tax. And I think the year before, after that was like 14%. They were huge. And then we had some, 5 and 6% years in there. And so if near term, the last, 5-ish years, maybe 6 years, we've had some very, very large increase years. And then this past year that we just finished, the 2024 fiscal year, was very flat. And then going into this year, it's probably not going to be a lot of growth, just a little bit. But, those are flat years.
Okay.
So.
Thank you for giving us all the information.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that. Okay, we're going to move on to item 7 on our agenda, and those are our 8 action items or legislative action items for the council to consider. So we are, do we have to continue those that are on our agenda? We do, correct? Okay, so item 7.1, consideration of ordinance 441-A approving a general plan amendment for 0.95 acre of realty at 3526 East Fort Union Boulevard from residential office to residential medium density. And Item 7.2, consideration of ordinance 442-A approving the rezone of 0.95 acre real property located at 3526 East Fort Union Boulevard from R18 residential single family to R28 residential multifamily and amending the zoning map. I need a motion. Could I get a motion? And item 7.4, consideration of resolution 2025-54 approving a development agreement with Land Development LLC. Could I get a motion to continue all three of these
Yeah,
items?
I'd like to make a motion that we move these agenda items or to the council meeting on August 5th.
I would second that motion.
A motion to approve from Councilmember Holton and a second from Councilmember Burrell. I don't have those in front of me. Do we need a roll call vote? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
I would like to make a comment that, I'm very glad to hear that Councilman Holton has requested this because, there is some further deliberation. We did not have this in our work session, and I would like to reflect my constituents' concerns around this project, and so I appreciate pushing this ahead. I'd like to see it in the work session discussion, prior to making any kind of action vote, if that's possible.
Thank you. Okay, item 7.3, consideration of ordinance 447, confirming and ratifying the Creek Road West annexation. We had the opportunity to discuss this item earlier. Any other questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve ordinance 447, confirming and ratifying the Creek Road West annexation.
I'll make a motion to approve and ratify the Creek Road West annexation.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve from Councilmember Highland and a second from Councilmember Burrell. Final comments? Call for the vote. Councilmember Holton,
Yes.
Councilmember Highland,
Yes.
Councilmember Burrell.
Yes.
And I will vote yes. Item 7.5, consideration of resolution 2025-55, approving an agreement with H.W. Lochner for design services. We also had the opportunity to discuss this item earlier in our work session. Any other questions or comments from the council?
Well, I move that we also continue this until the August meeting.
So if I can, if it's okay, I'd make a counter motion to that. And the motion would be that we would advance this, but with the expanded scope of the project to take into consideration a potential median and the impact to traffic and businesses in that area, and look at a holistic approach to that intersection so that the council can make an appropriate decision going forward. Councilmember Highland, if that addresses some of your concerns.
I think yes, it does. So I would support that motion, and I just will make a comment that with that expanded scope, I think that would actually address all of the concerns that we have. And this is a 30% design, so it's not that we are approving any expenditure to redo anything. This is just to see what's possible.
That's right. So I'll
And
make that motion
supporting it, I still need a second.
in a second.
And I will second.
So we have a motion to approve item 7.5 from Councilmember Holton and a second from Councilmember Highland. Final comments. I'll call for the vote. Councilmember Highland,
Yes.
Councilmember Burrell,
No.
Councilmember Holton,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. Okay, item 7.6, consideration of resolution 2025-56, approving and ratifying a bid and awarding a construction contract for the Creek Road Frontage Improvement Project. We also discussed this item earlier. Any other further comments from the council? Entertain a motion to approve resolution 2025-56, approving and ratifying a bid and awarding a construction contract for the Creek Road Frontage Improvements Project.
I will motion to approve and ratify the bid for the construction contract for Creek Road.
Second.
Motion to approve from Councilmember Highland and a second from Councilmember Holton. Final comments. Call for the vote. Councilmember Burrell,
Yes.
Councilmember Holton,
Yes.
Councilmember Highland.
Yes.
And I will vote yes. Item 7.7, consideration of resolution 2025-57, approving an appointment to the Arts Council. We also had the opportunity to discuss this item earlier. This is an appointment of Sharon Darrell, who is very highly qualified. Any other comments, questions or comments from the council?
I'm delighted to know that she's coming onto the Arts Council with the strengths of her background. It's exciting news, and I will make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion to approve from Councilmember Burrell and a second from Councilmember Highland. Final comments? Call for the vote. Councilmember Holton,
Yes.
Councilmember Highland,
Yes.
Councilmember Burrell.
Yes.
And I will vote yes. 7.8 is the last item, a legislative item for this evening. Consideration of resolution 2025-58 designating certain areas where orders to disperse are authorized. We also discussed this item earlier. Any other questions or comments from the council? Entertain a motion to approve resolution 2025-58 designating certain areas where orders to disperse are authorized.
Motion to approve resolution 2025-58.
I'll second.
Motion to approve from Councilmember Holton, a second from Councilmember Burrell. Final comments. Call for the vote. Councilmember Highland,
Definitely yes. Good solution. Thank you, Chief.
Councilmember Burrell,
Yes.
Councilmember Holton,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. The last item on our agenda for this evening is approval of the consent calendar, which is the minutes of our city council work session and business meeting for July 1st. Could I get a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. My voice, I have the one more motion because my voice is gone. Could I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.